Hello, friends, and welcome to the PrepWell podcast. I'm your host, Phil Black. And if you have an 8th, 9th, or 10th grader with big aspirations, like the Ivy League, or military service academies like West Point, ROTC, or athletic scholarships, boom, you've come to the right place. My specialty, my superpower, if you will, is preparing families for these competitive programs. I'll teach you what your child should do, when they should do it, and how you can help. So stick around and prepare to out-prepare. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the PrepWell podcast. I'd like to kick off today's discussion with a question. The question is, why does it seem like so many students end up with an 89 point something average at the end of a semester? 89.5, 89.4, 89.9. How can it be that so many students cut it so close? You wouldn't believe the number of phone calls I get from students and from parents asking for advice about what to do in this scenario. And I've been through it many, many times with my own sons. So what gives? Is there a conspiracy? Are the grading systems rigged? Is it a coincidence? Is it a mathematical issue? And as I think about this phenomenon, I can't help but wonder, where are all the students with the solid 93s or 94s or 85s or 86s? Why does it always have to be right on the bleeding edge of an A or a B? And why does it more often than not boil down to the final exam? In today's competitive environment, the difference between an A and a B in certain classes can be significant. So these borderline cases can become big deals. How big a deal this should be is debatable, but we'll probably leave that for another whole episode. In this episode, I'd like to propose some strategies to, 1, avoid ending the semester with an 89 point something average, and 2, if you do end up on the borderline between A and B, what can you do to increase your chances of getting that 89 point something bumped up to an A? Let's start with principle number 1. Start off strong. You have to do everything in your power to start the semester on a positive note. I can't stress this enough. If you run into problems later in the semester, it's usually because you started off on the wrong foot. Maybe you did poorly on your first quiz, or few quizzes, or on the first chapter test. Or maybe you forgot to turn in a few homework assignments, or you blew off the available extra credit assignments. In other words, you started off in the hole. And as I'm sure you've experienced, most of the time, the fact that your grade is flagging isn't abundantly clear right away. It creeps up on you slowly. Sometimes it's because you're not paying attention. Other times there are delays in when your teacher enters the grades. There are a whole host of reasons why a slow start may not reveal itself until later. And mind you, you're not intentionally not doing well. You're normally a great student. It's just that sometimes at the beginning of a new year or a new semester or with a new teacher, you may not be firing on all cylinders. And maybe you let things slide for a couple of weeks. This is the problem. You can't let down your guard early in the year or the semester. This is when you have to be at your best. This is when you will differentiate yourself. You never want to start off in the hole. Well, why not? Why is this such a big deal? Well, for one, it creates more pressure because now you start second-guessing yourself and doubting yourself. And it's typically harder to perform well in class and on tests when you've lost confidence and you feel pressured. Number 2, oftentimes mathematically, it's simply more difficult to bring a grade up after racking up a bunch of early losses, especially if those losses are on consequential tests or quizzes. And the longer it takes for you to right the ship, so to speak, the more difficult it will be for you to move the needle on your grade. In other words, if you have 20 assignments that put you at an 85 average, Mathematically, it's difficult to recover if you only have 5 or 6 assignments left in the semester, because each additional test or quiz will only have so much more marginal impact. Yes, the weight of each assignment is a factor in that calculation, but suffice it to say that the longer you wait to start salvaging your grade, the more difficult it will be. Sometimes you're in such a deep hole that even if you get A's and hundreds all the way out for the rest of the semester, you still may not be able to bring your grade up to an A, just by math. I'm sure, as you've seen, even as you get better and better grades deeper into the semester, your overall grade seems to barely budge. Number 3, you must understand how your grade is calculated and how much weight each assignment is given in your overall grade. Sometimes I think you get lulled into complacency because you look at the grade book in the first month of school and you have dozens of A's and some hundreds and 95s, but they're all for homework assignments and quizzes, which at the end of the day have very little or sometimes no weight in your final grade. And then you take your first chapter test and boom, you get a 73. And later find out that chapter tests make up 50% of your final grade. That's going to be a problem. So make sure you understand the parts of the class that matter most to your grade and make sure you don't drop the ball on those things. That doesn't mean that you ignore the homework and quizzes if they aren't heavily weighted, but you also don't want to let them lure you into thinking that you're better off than you really are. Study the syllabus early for each class and know what assignments will move the needle for your grade. Let's move on to principle number 2. Make sure the teacher knows that you care. This is a big one. In most cases, teachers have a fair bit of discretion in what they give you as a final grade. Not always, but in many cases. I'm sure there are some teachers who have hard and fast rules and policies about whether they round up or not. I get it. Teachers can be in a tough spot. They have to be careful about setting precedents and appearing to favor some students over others. It can be a slippery slope for them. But in my experience, I would say that the majority of teachers are rooting for you to get the good grade. They don't take pride in giving you a B for an 89.9 average. So let's start by taking the onus off the teacher. The first thing you need to do is help yourself. If you've been a fully engaged student who pays attention, who sits in the front of the classroom, who gets to class early, and doesn't start putting your books away at the end of class while the teacher is still talking, who volunteers to help, who goes to office hours during lunch for extra help, who asks relevant questions that help the class to learn, who's a role model in class, and who genuinely seems interested in learning the material. That teacher will be a lot more open to working with you should you find yourself in the deadly 89-point-something zone. This is where you want to be. You want to have a fighting chance. You want the teacher to be invested in you. That way, if by some unfortunate circumstance you find yourself staring down an 89.4 at the end of the semester or at the end of the year, you can confidently make your case and maybe ask for a lifeline to get over the hump. If, on the other hand, you take no special interest in the class or the subject being taught, and you're messing around with your phone during class, and you're clowning with your friends, and you're generally a middle-of-the-road student, why should the teacher feel compelled to give you the benefit of the doubt if you end up with a borderline grade? Pleading your case at the 11th hour will be too little too late. You missed the opportunity. You're always going to be in a position of weakness if you only start to show that you care about your grade the last few days of school. That doesn't fly. Principle number 3, do every piece of available extra credit work. I know it's tempting in the beginning of the semester to skip the extra credit assignments because it's so early. You're not even sure if you'll need the extra credit. You've never needed it before. You've always done well in this subject, so why put in any extra effort now? What if I don't need the extra credit to boost my grade in 3 months? I will have wasted all that time learning something new or reinforcing something that I already knew pretty well when I could have spent all those hours swiping on my phone. Don't make this ridiculous decision. Do the extra work now, whether you'll need it or not. Think of it as an insurance policy. Begging your teacher for some kind of extra credit opportunity at the end of the semester is lame. It's cringeworthy. And it won't play well with your teacher. Don't let that be you. Do the work early. Do the work often, whether you will ultimately need that little boost or not. And just to be clear, this advice only applies to students who are motivated, who care about their grades and learning, who want to excel, who want to be competitive, who want to put their best foot forward, who want to leave no stone unturned. Does that describe you? If not, then forget everything I just said and just continue to wallow in mediocrity. I'm sure you'll be fine. Principle number 4, be your own advocate. If you did all the right things, you started the semester highly motivated, you went to office hours, you turned in all of your homework assignments on time, you asked good questions, you showed the teacher that you care about the class and your grade, you did the extra credit, you were a leader in the class, and you still happen to end up on the 89 point something bubble, and you want to make the case that your grade should be bumped to an A, make sure that you reach out to your teacher. Don't get your parents involved. Your parents can help. They can guide you. They can even help you draft an email. But don't let them take over and reach out to the teacher on your behalf. Most teachers that I know, they don't appreciate this tactic. They want to hear from you, the student they've been teaching for 3 or 4 months, not your parents. Consider talking to the teacher in person. If it's hard to find a quiet moment to discuss this type of an issue during school hours, then send an email with your thoughts. Don't be demanding. Don't make excuses. Don't make it seem like you expect him or her to change your grade. Don't whine. Don't complain. And don't make it seem like your world will come to a screeching halt if you don't get that A. Don't complain that it will ruin your perfect record of A's, or that it'll dash your chances of getting into Princeton, or any other overly dramatic plea. Be thoughtful, be honest, be direct, be earnest, and then let the chips fall where they may. If you're feeling particularly bold, maybe you even offer a few suggestions on how you might, quote unquote, prove yourself worthy of the benefit of the doubt. And if you're going to do this, make sure your suggestions are substantial. Maybe you would retake the test, or you'd complete extra Khan Academy modules, or you would write an extra paper, or you would present a lesson to the class, or something else that might prove your seriousness. It may not work, but it may be worth asking. At that point, if you've upheld principles 1, 2, and 3, and you still end up on the razor's edge, let's say with an 89.5, and the teacher decides for whatever reason that he or she will still not bump the grade to an A, here's what you do. You thank the teacher for considering your case, you vow to do better next time, and you set a goal not to cut it so close next time, and then you move on. You keep a great attitude. You don't pout. You don't disengage. You don't complain, talk behind the teacher's back. You don't go to the principal. You don't do any of these things. You take your licks and you move on. I've seen instances where teachers say no to bumping up the grade, even after a compelling email request to bump it up, and then they change their mind to a yes just because of how the student reacted to the no. So you just never know. Do the right thing and let it play out. And one last thing that I'll add here. If you get a teacher who does bump you from a B to an A, please do not start spreading this word to all of your friends. That does nothing. The only thing it does is potentially compromise your teacher, because word will start getting out that you got special treatment. They bumped your grade to an A and not my grade to an A. Just thank the teacher, be happy that you made your case, and never speak of it again. This is not something that should be flaunted. It's not something that you should get in your friends' faces about and I got an A. You go on the DL with it and you let it lie. So here's the recipe for never letting an 89 point something turn into a B. Number 1, start off strong. Don't ease into the semester. Go in like a bat out of hell and perform well right away. And make sure you know how each element of the class is weighted, so you don't mistakenly think that hundreds on your homework assignments will make up for B's and C's on your actual tests. Number 2, make sure the teacher knows that you care. Number 3, if there are extra credit opportunities, do them. Every single one, even if you don't think you'll ever need them. And number 4, if it looks like you still ended up on the bubble, even after going through all of this effort, and your 89 point something ends up a B on your transcript, be your own advocate, state your case in a mature way, offer suggestions, and then live with the results and keep your mouth closed. That's all I've got for you today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your continued support. If you know a parent with an 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader, any high schooler that might find this helpful, please share this episode with them. You can do that by finding that small box with the tiny arrow pointing up. That's the share button. Click that button, text your friends a link to this episode, maybe even put a little personal note from you recommending that they give it a listen. If you have questions, comments, or an idea for an upcoming episode, please reach out to me by email, DM me on Instagram, check out our blog, Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. Until next week, goodbye, good luck, and never stop preparing. This podcast is brought to you by PrepWell Academy. PrepWell Academy is my one-of-a-kind online mentoring program that delivers to your 9th or 10th grader a short, highly relevant video from me every week, every Sunday in fact, where I give them a heads up about what they should be thinking about to stay ahead of the game. To get these valuable lessons into your child's hands, please head over to PrepWellAcademy.com and enroll your child today.